This video we will explain to you how to put together our 3D baseball bat box, which is an SVG file from Simply Crafty SVGs. And then at the end of the video, we will show you how to also make a 3D version, which is more challenging. So in this video, we're going to put together this 3D bat box. So it's a box that has a real snug lid like that. So it goes on, and it's like that. So the hardest part with this is just putting this on, but if you were going to give this as a gift, you could fill it with paper or something to give it a little, to build it up inside, and put like some candy or something like that inside. So it'd be a fun little gift box to give, and you could always put some final sayings or some tags on here. This would be good for probably for a birthday or Father's Day, something like that. So we're going to put this version together, and then there'll be a second version, which is just a solid bat. So I don't have a good example of that right this moment, but you saw a picture earlier. The solid bat just won't have a lid, but many of the elements are going to be the same, so I'm only going to go over parts of the tutorial once. And so this will be the main top part of the box, these long pieces. This will be part of the lid and the lid, so those two. And then this is the bottom piece, the handle. I have something sticking there. Get that off. And this will be like the handle where you would have tape around it normally on a bat. So those are the pieces. So we can start with this piece. Actually, let's do this one because we want this to dry good and dry. So I'm going to put those aside. Put those aside for now. So this is this portion of it right here. So we're just going to put this together, minus this back part, and I'll show you just a moment from now. So we'll put these two on later, but we're just going to do this piece. So we want to make sure it's good and folded first. So this is I'm scoring it like this first. It's fragile, so I am using American Craft texture cardstock, and I'm using today I'm using art glitter glue. I also like barely art glue. So there's also these teeny tabs here, so I'm going to show you right here. You can see they're folded like that. So you want to make sure that you fold all these, and if you need to use a bone folder to get a nice crisp fold, especially if you're using something like a Cricut score tool. It doesn't score the best for 3D crafts. I cut this with a StarCraft Solo machine, so I did not score it with the score tool on the Cricut. I scored it by cutting it. So now that we have this together, we're just going to go ahead and glue it like that. Or actually, we could do this first. It might be easier to do these pieces. I put it together a couple times, but I put it together a little bit different every single time so I can see how easy it would be to put together. So we're just going to go ahead and line these edges up to this tab fold. So there's going to be that angle. So you want to make sure that's what it looks like on the back, that it's good and folded. I guess it's scored well. And then you just want to continue around. And you don't want to move on until you get the tab kind of secure. I mean, you want it secure before moving on to the next one because you don't want to pull it off. But you can see I kind of run my finger over that, and I can tell that this edge is lined up with this little tab fold. So we're going to continue doing that all the way around here, and then we'll go to the next step. So before we go to the next step, I just want to talk you through this last part. When you're gluing this last tab, you might want to do one tab. You can do both at once, but because of the angle, it might be a little difficult. So you could do the top one first. And you can still reach in really well. Get that lined up. Boy, the last one's always the hardest when you do a shape like this. And you can see I probably went a little bit too quick because that one came apart. And I have this little damp paper towel to help me wipe off any excess glue. Then we'll reach in and get that last tab. So I'm just kind of holding that so I don't pull on it. I can flip that back. And then carefully line that up. And then we'll put this aside to dry. So it's nice and sturdy when we get to the part where we attach the actual bat to this. So I already pre-folded these, but there's 8 of these. This is for the box. So the lid will be these little shorter pieces up here. We're going to put those up there. And then I already folded these, but you have, this is how you would fold it. It's just easier to kind of go flat and fold up like that from a table. And then you might want to just fold that like that. So there's 2 ways we could do this. We could attach these, pre-attach these go down here, or we can put it on after. For this one, we're gonna put it on after. And I'll show you an alternative way of doing it when we do the solid box if you want to attach these. But we need to be able to get in and to reach in with to the tabs, the long tabs, and having this, we may rip it off. So we're not going to do it that way. So I have something like this. You want to get a long implement to have available. So when we start gluing it together, it'll allow us to put some pressure behind these tabs as we glue it together. So there's 8 of these. So just make sure they're all pre-folded like this. And you can start at the top or bottom. So I'm going to start at the top. We're just going to glue them all together side by side to make that octagon shape. So we're just going to line it up. You want to make sure you're careful to line it up on the top and also line this edge up to the tab fold. So you want to be as precise as possible. So the first ones are going to be fairly easy because we can easily reach in from the top. We could always do this in 2-fold. You can do the top first and then the bottom, or you could do the top and bottom like this. So I think what we're going to do, the best thing is probably to do just 1/2 at a time. So we'll do that. So you could, if you're very familiar, again, we're doing the same thing, just lining it up at the top and also this edge to this fold right here. If you're comfortable with it, you can go ahead and glue all the way down. And I'll do one here. In fact, I'm just going to switch my whole ideal. I can switch how I was going to do it. This is not that difficult. So since I kind of changed my mind in mid-assembly tutorial, you just want to continue watching. So this one, starting with the second one, we'll go ahead and I'm just going to flip it up a little bit. So I can add the glue to this tab. And then again, we're going to line this edge up to the tab fold. But if you find it's easier, I guess it just really doesn't matter which way you do it, just as long as you can continue to reach in. It's just going to get more difficult when we get to that last piece since there's 8 of them. So I'll continue to add these, and I'll come back so you can watch me add majority of these. But when we get to the part where we need to close it up, I'll come back and explain how we can do that, or getting close to it closing up, I should say. So as you can see, as we get to the end of this, it's getting tighter and tighter, and I have it kind of going like that. You can see how I have it just kind of going around rather than together. So it's just easier that way for you to manage the project. So that's what it looks like, kind of inside each other, until you have to close it up. So you want to make sure this last one is nice. Get that. Make sure everything is nice and secure, and to make sure you keep your glue from leaking out, because this part will be seen. You can always have just a damp paper towel that's just slightly damp, just to get any excess. Sometimes I put it on my finger and just wipe my finger off. So now when we get to closing this, so that's what the inside looks like right now. We're going to close it like that, right? So it's going to be it's not that difficult. It's easier with the fine tip applicator. But I'm just going to do this top one first. You can do them both at the same time, but I'm just going to reach in and put glue on that one after. So we'll do one at a time. So if you invest in anything, something like a fine tip applicator for your glue, depending on the glue you use. I know Barely Art comes with kind of a fine tip with it. So here's Barely Art if you use Barely Art. So it's the same thing. So we're going to go ahead and glue that, and you want to just line it up carefully. So when we're going to close it, it's probably it's always the most difficult part of doing a 3D. So I'm kind of lining it up, and it's not touching quite yet, but I can touch it at the top. I'm going to push it together. Then I'm going to go inside, and I'm using this as essentially what my hands can do, because I can't reach in that far. I'm just looking in to make sure. So you can do the top okay, and you could try to reach in a little bit. This is if you decided to glue this later, you would be able to reach in from there. But honestly, I'm just going to put it down, give it a little bit more pressure on those tabs, on that one tab. So I'm just pushing down, and you probably could, this is big enough too if you want to use a bone folder. It's just harder because of the shape, but you could do similar. So just have at least one long tool in your arsenal like that. And we wanted to get it as very precise as much as possible, because the lid is a snug fit, and if you don't do it as precise as possible, lining it up, then that could be an issue. So we have this last tab. I'm going to reach in. You can't reach in like, I'm just going to start at this point. Like I said, you could put glue on this all at the same time if you like. I'm just reaching in to not be able to see everything. One of the reasons I haven't done a box like this is because of this reason and the shape. If I made it any smaller, which I did, it would be really difficult to... It gets harder when it's smaller. But you can make it smaller. You could resize it if you wanted to. Some people are better at the resizing than others. So the same thing, I'm just lining it up. Then I'm using this as the backward pressure. That would be my fingers usually. I'm just going to flip it over. Trying to figure out which one I just glued. I believe it's that one. I'm just going in and making sure it's secure. So typically, like I said, this is going to be the bottom of the box right here. So you probably would want to cushion. You could put something like tissue paper or something in it if you're going to put some candy or some, just to cushion it at the bottom if you're going to use it for that purpose. So now, this is a little awkward, but if these were already attached, which you could pre-attach them, they would get in your way when you're doing all this other work. So we're going to attach them after the fact. So that's what we're going to put on next are these. So I already folded these, but what you want to do is fold them prior to putting it on. So we're just going to put it against the table like this. And then fold it. I'm going to use my bone folder to get a nice crisp fold. And down here there's a little tab. You want to kind of fold it outwards because we just want to train it. We will be using it to, that'll be, this tab will glue backwards to the end of the handle. So what we want to do is to take this, so we're going to start with one. We're going to just glue it like this. And then this is going to glue, this edge will glue under the next piece and then next piece. So it is a little awkward. I'm going to be honest about that. I wish I could find a better way to do this. I tried multiple ways, but when you're by yourself, you don't have too much feedback here. And it's long. I wanted to keep the length. It's a shorter bat, but I wanted to keep some length to make it feel like a bat still. So I'm just going to line this up. So you can kind of pull it up a little bit. And then I'm lining it right up to the fold, the tab fold, like that. So if you can see. And then on the inside, this is what it looks like. So why it becomes a little bit awkward is these tabs kind of get in your way when you're doing things. So the next one, in order for me to glue this next one on there, I kind of have to go underneath. I mean, not underneath, but I do to glue it, but this needs to go underneath. So I'm going to kind of pull that aside and do the next one. So this will be the same on the solid, on just the regular 3D vat. So the same thing, I'm just lining it up. And before you glue these two together, so now we're going to glue this side tab here, you do need to wait a minute and let this dry. I mean, because you can't have the glue, it moving on you. So you kind of look at the bottom there, but you need to make sure that it's secure before you move on. So I'm just going to pull that up just a little bit and add glue to this tab. We're going to glue that to the adjacent piece. So right here. So we're just going to go like this. Line it up. Be careful with excess glue. You don't want to fold it either. So I'm just going to get it this way so I was pushing it with this was touching my chest. So this is similar to what we did the top. So we're just going to continue around that way, but you can see things kind of have to, this is why it's good to get a nice crisp, just the tip. Let's really get that folded well so we can get it out of the way when we're doing this piece. But of course you have to fold it back out to glue it. So we'll continue. You can go ahead. I'm not going to talk through this, but you can watch me put together the rest of it. And then when I get to the last piece again, I will kind of talk you through it just to make sure. You can see we're on our last piece, and it was easier for me to hold it this way. So we're going to go ahead and attach this. So again, having something like the wooden chopstick that I use, which if you go to take out, even at fast food, like at least in the US, they give you these wooden chopsticks. So if you have an extra pair, that's always handy. I haven't paid for those yet, so I always get them. I don't always use them, so that's another purpose for them. So now I just have to glue this side. So this is going to be the hardest part about this black portion. And again, you can make this and you don't have to have it black. You can take the whole thing wood if you wanted to. So as you get to these last two pieces, and you want to get it as accurate as possible, lined up. So as you get to these last two pieces, it does get smaller and smaller. And thus you'll see why I made it the size I did. So I'm just reaching in and applying pressure. There's another way I could have done this, but it's very hard for some people. So I could have wrapped it around, but a lot of people have problems anyways getting it lined up, so that's why I did it this way based on feedback from previous designs. So now I'm going to carefully reach in, making sure I don't get any glue on the outside black part, not pulling it off either, so you have to be gentle here. Add a little bit more glue here. I'm just going to slide it underneath. See if I can get it lined up. And this just takes patience. This is not even, this part is just patiently lining up that edge with the tab fold. Then when you get it set, just kind of apply pressure on this end, and then we'll go ahead and get this in here. So I'm just putting that enough in there to be able to get some, to use it as something that I can apply pressure against. And that's it. So that part's done. And we'll go ahead and put this little handle piece on now. So we might want to let this dry for a minute, but we're just going to move on. But if you need it to dry, just going to move these in. Slide that in like that. Let's see if you can see this. That. And you can always adjust it to the sides that are better. So like, see that I have a little bit of a blemish or something there? Actually, there's a little gap here, so let me fix that. So I'm just going to take a little piece of paper, add some glue to it. I can see a little gap up here, so we're just going to slide this in with the glue to get the glue in there. Maybe just a little bit more. Let's fix that before we move forward. So just do a quick once around when you do it to see. It wouldn't really compromise much of anything. I mean, like I said, it's solid. It's hollow all the way through. So if you put something in this box, you probably want to put a padding of some sort at the bottom. I would at least, like tissue paper, like I said earlier. So let me get that out of my way so I don't get glue on anything. So I'm going to line up, I'm going to take probably the worst part and line it up to like, and that when I say the worst part, if I have something that's kind of glaring, doesn't look quite right, I just kind of match it up to something that doesn't look quite right on this side. So I just find the best view of the item and then put the stuff that's I'm not so happy with on the back. I'm going to do that. I don't think that really takes away from much from the design. So I'm folding these all inward. You can see I'm lining them up. So we zoomed out a little bit. And hopefully you can see that. There's a little tab inside. It's just a weird, you can see it right there. There. I'm just going to fold it backwards on the inside. But we want to make sure it folds back on that fold right here on the black. I'll show you in a minute inside. So just start with one tab to get it anchored. So that's the anchor tab. There you go. So we're going to do the opposite. So I'm going to take the one that's opposite to it. Right there. This one. And add glue to the back of that and fold it back to get it anchored in place. So basically I'm reaching in and folding it towards me to glue on the back side of this. So let me show you. So we have two tabs now. So we're just going to put glue on these other three right here. So we're just doing it on the back side and then folding it up as you see. And then the other three. So there's total of 8. So we'll go ahead and do that. It's not something I can easily show you on video. Just because of the angle bit. But when you fold it back, just make sure it's folding that edge is lined up with that outside, that actual fold. So as I do it, you can kind of push it in if needed, just to make sure this edge is in the fold. Like that. And then the same thing with the other 3. But gluing those first 2 actually help it to center it so you can glue these easily. So if you do that one, the first one, and then the one across from the first one, and then each of the three in between the two, it really helps to center it. And that's what it looks like complete. And then we'll go ahead and put on this bottom piece. So there's two pieces on the bottom. One's like this, and one's like this. So this is going to go underneath to help shape it, and then this will go easily over those tabs. So let's go ahead and do those. So we just want to do one tab first. So I'm going to add glue to the inside of one tab, like that. Then since this is textured, I'm going to flip it over because we're not going to see this. I want to glue the non-textured side because it'll glue better. So I'm just going to take it and fold this over that. So we're just going to glue that on that section. So I want to make sure it's lined up well. So it's hard to see here, so I'm going to do it down here. I'm going to show you in a minute. But you want to line up one of the edges and glue it like this. So you can see this one section of this piece. Then pull these back a little bit. And then rotate it in gently. And then we're going to glue those all onto that. So when we do that, so I'm going to do the opposite of the one that I just glued. We're going to just go ahead and fold it over, which centers it. And I can reach in, that's why this has a hole in it. I can reach in and apply pressure behind. And then it'll be like super simple to do the other 6. So it's kind of pushed down right now. So as we glue these on, we're going to pull them up and make sure that the edge of this inside panel is lined up with the edge of this fold right here. And then we'll add this panel bottom here. You could add glue here too, like I was doing. So I'm just kind of pulling it up, make sure that the edge meets this inside tab fold of this, and then you'll be left with this. And then all we're simply going to do after this is dry is to glue this piece on to cover it. And then that'll finish that. So you can see I just added glue on the bottom. And then I'm going to make sure the textured side's up. Then just line it up. And once you get it on, you just want to rub around the edges. And then you can go ahead and apply pressure right there. So you can see the majority of it's done already. And just make sure that's good and secure. You don't want many gaps down there. And then we'll go ahead and put together this, and it's very similar to the way we put this together, so it shouldn't be that difficult. So now we can go ahead and start putting together the lid. So these are the pieces to the lid. You can see how I'm folding it. I go ahead and I have the tab at the top. So you want to fold all those pieces, and then we have that octagon piece. And you have them pre-folded, it'll be easier to put together in the next step. I apologize, I had to stop for a moment, but I also had a little malfunction with my video, so I already glued one. But they're all the same, like the bottom one. They are similar to how these glue together, so I already put the 2 pieces together. So we're going to go ahead and put a third piece on the same way. So I'm just going to add glue to this top tab, just in case you feel you're new and you want to be extra careful, not glue everywhere. One thing you want to make sure with this particular piece is that you don't overlap this edge over the fold. You want to get close to it. If anything, you want to go a little bit to the right of it, so the lid will fit on. So the lid is a really tight fit on purpose, so it looks like a bat when there's a lid on. Otherwise, if it's too loose, it would lose its effect, I think. So you want to be as precise as possible with this design. And you can go right up to it. You can see how I'm doing it. But it is going to be a tight lid. So it is similar. We're just going to continue putting them on. And then the last piece to put on for this one will be just this little top octagon piece. So you could put glue on all of them at once, but if you're more comfortable doing it one at a time, you can. Like this, anchoring this, and then doing the bottom piece. So it's just all repetitive. I'll go ahead and finish this up, but it's just going to be going a little bit quicker. So you don't have to hear me talking through it and being so repetitive. But remember, when it comes to the end, you want to have some long tool like a wooden chopstick to help you out, get that pressure behind it. So when we get to this last part, it's a little bit difficult on the top, but I would say you probably want to glue the bottom piece first, and then that top one. So we're just going to line this up. Okay, so right when I was explaining that last piece, how to glue this last piece, which I did the long part first, just to get that set, and then I'm going to glue this. My battery died, so it's going to be one of those videos. Hopefully it's watchable. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to reach in and get this last tab glued. So when you are closing it, I do recommend gluing it here and then getting this, get pressure behind that, and then applying this. So mine's a little bit crooked at the bottom because I realized it wasn't filming and I kind of panicked. So, and the last thing I'm going to do is glue this top piece on. So you could always glue one tab just to get it anchored. And then we'll add glue to all these and just fold it down like that. So if you do like this project or any of my videos, I always ask if you can give me a like or thumbs up on the video and or subscribe to our channel. If you hit that little notification bell next to subscribe, you'll be notified when we have new projects or tutorials. I'm just folding that over. And then once I get it lined up, I'm just kind of carefully going around getting it lined up. I'm just going to flip it upside down and apply pressure on the inside. Getting lots of extra tools in my video these days. This is a pretty big project, so I kind of have to zoom out. I have a small desk. So I'm just applying some pressure. So this is a lid. We'll see how well it goes over, but you want to make sure that's good and glued on. So that finishes the box. So we're going to go ahead and carefully, this one I made a little bit larger, so it slid on really well. The tighter you glue these to each other, the harder it's going to be to get on and off. But that's it. So this one's a lot more tighter, but you can't really tell the difference. But anyways, so that's the bat box. So now we'll do the solid one, but I'm not going to go through the whole video. I'm just going to show you, we're probably going to skip some things, but show you the basic of how to put the top together. So the basic difference between the box and this is that it's solid. So you have this top piece. So if you remember putting together, this top piece is all one piece. So it all has to be done at once. One thing, if you use metallic, it is a hard paper to work with. I like this Recollections foil cardstock. It has a craft paper backing, which is easy to work with on the back. But on the front, I always have a damp paper towel ready to get any smudges off. So I already put together this piece. So these are the same. And this will be the same. So the only difference are these top long pieces. So this time I will attach this. You don't have to attach it, but I'm going to try a different method. So I'm not going to be talking the whole time for this one. So I'm just attaching these little black pieces to each of these. Oops. Let's put that aside. Because it's pretty repetitive, so I didn't need to show you the bottom piece and not how it goes together. I will show you finished, but this will attach exactly to this piece like the other one did. So you want to, if you're doing the solid one, you want to watch that portion of the first portion of the video. And make sure your hands are clean if you're using metallic. That's the thing. So I'm going to go ahead and glue these all here, and then I'll start putting them together. And then I'll show you a video of me putting this together. So since this is so similar, you can see that I attached these black pieces. But I'm not going to talk through the whole thing, but I do want to note that this particular one is harder to put together than the one with the lid because of the ability to reach in. So of course I'm going to use this. And also I attached this, so I'm going to have to kind of bend it down. So what I'll do with this one is do the top part and then do this part separately. So meaning, I'll walk you through the first piece how I'm going to do it. So I'll attach it just like we did the other at the top, but that was the lid, right? So we could reach in from the bottom for that long piece. I mean, it's similar to the box too. And I always have, it's just because of the paper I'm using that I'm making sure that I have to get the excess glue off the metallic. I'm barely touching it and it gets smudged. So it's really hard to work with metallics. I'm challenging myself on this one. Then we'll just do this piece. So if you're a beginner, this is really not a beginner. The whole project is not a beginner project, but I think you could get through the first part if you kind of followed the instructions. This one you could, but you could get frustrated. So this is one that somebody new could get frustrated with. So you might want to try I have free files that are boxes, little 3D, but the simpler ones first, and then graduate to this. Well, I said I wasn't going to do this one yet, but I can go this way. So you could save this for later, but I just out of habit go down. But I am not going to put this together, and the reason why is when it comes to that last piece, I won't be able to reach in to get this middle part. So you don't want to glue that bottom part first. So regardless of how you do it, you need to leave enough room for you to get in and apply pressure inside. And if I close this up It's going to be hard enough to get in there, but anyways, that's why I wouldn't do it, but that's up to you. If you're advanced, you can do it. So I'm going to go ahead and continue doing this, but I'm not going to have any, you're just going to have music, and it's going to be, the speed will go up a little bit, so because it's also repetitive. So now we're at the end here. I'm going to go ahead and add glue to, carefully add glue to all these 3 tabs. See if I can do 2 at once here. So this gets a little bit more difficult, not going to lie. This to reach in is going to be more difficult. So I'm going to flip that in. You have to get it lined up. Actually, I shouldn't have glued that top piece yet. So we're going to go in from the bottom. This is, I'm getting a lot of glue on my, I'm going to push this in. Go in from the bottom here. So I'm just going to apply some pressure on to get it adhered. It's not lined up right, so let me go ahead and just pull it apart a little bit. So this is the tricky part. If it were smaller, it'd be easier to work with. So you don't want to glue that top tab first, because you need to be able to get underneath it. Not going to worry about glue for right now. Just going to go as get that in where I need it. I just accidentally glued that top part first, so we don't want to do that. Now we're going to add glue to that. So it's going to be hard lining that up. Just know that's not your imagination. This is why it's more advanced. Then here, you can try to get your fingertips. If you can't, then you might want to use tweezers to get in there. But I'm able to get in there. It's just a matter of metallic paper, me making a mess of the metallic paper. And it would look, American Craft texture cardstock is way more forgiving than metallic papers. Now I actually have to reach in, and it doesn't matter if you get full coverage with this, but I do have to reach in and get glue in this little area here. This one should be a little bit easier than the top part because of this part. That was causing us trouble. So this is not the most elegant, but it is a way to do it. Just hard with such a big design. So if you wanted to size this down a little bit, it might be a little bit more, a little easier if you wanted something like this. Otherwise, I always would suggest the majority should stick to the box. So I hesitated even putting the closed version out just because of the difficulty of putting it together. But I know there's others out there that are advanced, and actually way more advanced than I am. So, and they wouldn't mind putting things like this together. So then just make sure that you wait a little bit after, just make sure it's secure and you're not pulling it, and then glue the rest of these bottom pieces together, which, since they're already attached, we're just going to go ahead and glue them like this and just go around like we did on the last one. So you can see I have it pretty much all together now, and then the lid is just hinged on. So if you watch the first part, which you might have to watch, I just fold it over and attach it like this. The difference is that we can't reach in and apply pressure from the other side. So when you do this, glue it to that one tab, and then just make sure these tabs are up a little bit so they can catch. This is why I like the Craft backing, because it glues pretty well, attaches, but with foil paper it's just slippery. So you have to hold it longer. So if this were just regular cardstock, it would adhere much quicker. So you want to make sure that you get it down and you can rub it a little bit. Of course, so what I've been doing is cleaning this off because of the glue that I'm getting on it. So yeah, just kind of pushing it in too to get this aligned properly on the top. Can't see it. And then I'll put it upside down. Apply some pressure. So just make sure it's good, and so you can see it's almost done. So all we have to do is attach this piece and put it on. So if you watch the first video, all we're going to do is slide this in. We're going to glue these tabs to the inside. So start with one, glue the one across from it, and then glue all the other ones, making sure that this lines up, that the edge of this bottom handle piece lines up with the tab fold. So I'm just going to apply pressure like that, and I'll continue doing that with all the tabs on the inside. So you can see the glue came through a little bit. Be careful with that. once that one is anchored, I can anchor the one across from it. So that's the one that we glued. Let's see. And then, let's see if you can see it. There we go. And then we'll glue all of them like that inside, and then we'll add this piece and this piece. And if you need to review that part, you want to watch that first video. So here's the finished 3D version. Now, this is kind of a bonus file, so it's not something that I think the masses can make, or I think everybody can make it. It just takes a lot more patience. So you see I had a little bending down there, and but I mean, it really is just a presentation piece, if anything. But I might suggest you size it down a little bit. I just made it the same size as the other one to make it easy in the file. But you could always resize the entire thing. So, but just kind of a different thing. And then here's the actual baseball box. So much easier to make. And I hope you like this project. If you do, again, please give me a little thumbs up below, and I thank you so much for watching.